Hey everyone, this is episode 4 of Uncovering the Hidden Agendas, a video series dedicated to showing you all how undercover Satan really is in aspects of society. So I called this episode literally Seizing the Day because that's what Satan has done with days of the week, holidays, and other commemorations that we often celebrate. So without further ado, let's get into it. Days of the week. Sunday comes from Old English, the word there, which is derived from a Germanic interpretation of the Latin dies solis, sun's day. Germanic and Norse mythology personify the sun as a goddess named Sunna or Sol. So, connection with the sun. Monday likewise comes from the Old English word listed there, named after Mani, the Norse personification of the moon and Sol's brother. Tuesday comes from Old English after Tu or Tyr, a one-handed Norse god of dueling. He is equated with Mars, the Roman war god. Wednesday is Woden's Day. Woden or Odin was the ruler of the Norse god's realm and associated with wisdom, magic, victory, and death. The Romans connected Woden to Mercury because they were both guides of souls after death. Wednesday comes from the Old English word there. Thursday, Thor's Day, gets its English name after the hammer-wielding Norse god of thunder, strength, and protection. The Roman god Jupiter, as well as being the king of gods, was the god of the sky and thunder. Thursday comes from this Old English word. Friday is named after the wife of Odin. Some scholars say her name was Frigg, others say it was Freya. Other scholars say Frigg and Freya were two separate goddesses. Whatever her name, she was often associated with Venus, the Roman goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. Friday comes from the Old English word listed here. As for Saturday, Germanic and Norse traditions didn't assign any of their gods to this day of the week. They retained the Roman name instead. The English word Saturday comes from the Anglo-Saxon word listed here, which translates to Saturn's Day. So look at that. All 7 days of the week named after gods. It's like one of those unintentional sins that you can't do anything about. So now let's move on to year-round holidays. And I guess I'll go in chronological order. So let's start with New Year's. New Year's Day was a very important date, but the most interesting fact is that originally the Roman year didn't start on January 1st, but in March. This was mainly because March was the month dedicated to Mars, the Roman god of war, which was also believed to be the divine father of Romulus, the founder of Rome. Due to extraordinary circumstances in wartime, in the year 153 BC, the consul Quintus Fulvius Nobilior exceptionally moved New Year's Day to January 1st for the first time in history. However, it was Julius Caesar in 46 BC with his Julian calendar who permanently established the holiday on January 1st. The beginning of the year was dedicated to a very peculiar Roman god, Janus. According to the mythology, Janus was the two-faced god of doors, beginnings and passages. That is why the first month of the year, January, was named after him. On New Year's Day, the Romans would go on a procession to the top of the Capitoline Hill, where the priests would sacrifice a white bull to ask protection from the gods for the new year. Moreover, the high priest, the Pontifex Maximus, would offer to Janus a pie made of flour, cereals, cheese, eggs, and olive oil to invoke the god's benevolence. The people would then celebrate by feasting together and wearing something red, which was supposed to bring good luck, health, and fertility. So that's the origin of New Year's Day. Let's move on to Valentine's Day. Supposedly, some people believe Valentine's Day actually originates from a Roman festival known as Lupercalia, a celebration held on February 15th. During this frenzy, Romans would engage in violent acts of sex, animal sacrifice, and fertility rites. Many believe Valentine's Day is a mild offshoot of this holiday. Blah, blah, blah. Although the holiday didn't originally have Eros love in mind, romantic love, because after all it was named after St. Valentine and that was not his priority, perhaps Lupercalia had influenced some traditions we see in modern-day Valentine's Day celebrations. We may wonder how a celibate saint who married couples in secret, there it is, turned into a holiday in which we exchange teddy bears and flowers with those whom our souls love romantically. Perhaps the holiday arose out of a blend for the Pope's call to recognize February 14th as a holiday to commemorate the saint and the holiday Lupercalia. This could explain why there's such a heavy focus on romantic love for Valentine's Day instead of the compassionate, caring love St. Valentine exemplified for couples who wanted to marry. Valentine's Day continued to evolve throughout the Middle Ages, first recorded as a romantic holiday by none other than Chaucer. Couples would exchange notes such as the one Valentine supposedly had, and similarly to holidays such as Halloween and Christmas, gifts and candles started to be exchanged. This was amplified when mass-produced Valentine notes hit America in the 1800s. Now, like Halloween and other holidays, which we'll talk about, the origins of this holiday have disappeared behind cards and candles. All right, moving ahead to Lent. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, the real aim of Lent is above all else to prepare men for the celebration of the death and resurrection of Christ. The better the preparation, the more effective the celebration will be. One can effectively relive the mystery only with purified mind and heart. The purpose of Lent is to provide that purification by weaning men from sin and selfishness through self-denial and prayer, by creating in them the desire to do God's will and to make His kingdom come by making it come first of all in their hearts. First, understand that the celebration of the death and resurrection of Christ, to which the preceding quote refers, is so-called Good Friday and Easter Sunday, which we'll get to next. Holidays deeply rooted in ancient paganism. They were instituted by mainstream Christianity in order to counterfeit and replace the Passover season. Second, the Bible says that we are purified, cleansed, set apart, and made pure in Jehovah's sight by the shed blood of Yeshua the Messiah. This, along with faith and humbly submitting to and obeying Jehovah God through His truth and prayer, makes us clean before Jehovah God. No amount of fasting, abstaining from physical pleasures, or any other form of self-denial can purify us. Lent was never observed by the Messiah or His apostles. He commanded His disciples to go ye therefore and teach all nations, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And Lent or Easter was not one of them. Alexander Hislop wrote in his book, The Two Babylons, the festival of which we read in church history under the name of Easter in the 3rd and 4th centuries was quite a different festival from that now observed in the Romish Church, and at that time was not known by any such name as Easter. That festival, Passover, was not idolatrous, and it was preceded by no Lent. Lent was not observed by the 1st century church. It was first addressed by the church at Rome during the Council of Nicaea in AD 325, when Emperor Constantine officially recognized that church as the Roman Empire's state religion. Any other form of Christianity that held to doctrines contrary to the Roman Church was considered an enemy of the state. Blah, blah, blah. Coming from the Anglo-Saxon Lenten, meaning spring, Lent originated in the ancient Babylonian mystery religion. The 40 days abstinence of Lent was directly borrowed from the worshippers of the Babylonian goddess. Among the pagans, this Lent seems to have been an indispensable preliminary to the great annual festival in commemoration of the death and resurrection of Tammuz. Tammuz was the false messiah of the Babylonians, a satanic counterfeit of Yeshua the Messiah. The Feast of Tammuz was usually celebrated in June, also called the month of Tammuz. Lent was held 40 days before the feast, celebrated by alternate weeping and rejoicing. This is why Lent means spring. It took place from spring to early summer. Blah, blah, blah. But why did the church at Rome institute such a pagan holiday? To conciliate the pagans to nominal Christianity, Rome, pursuing its usual policy, took measures to get the Christian and pagan festivals amalgamated, and by a complicated but skillful adjustment of the calendar, it was found no difficult matter in general to get paganism and Christianity, now far sunk in idolatry, in this as in so many other things, to shake hands. The Roman Church replaced Passover with Easter, moving the pagan feast of Tammuz to early spring, Christianizing it. Lent moved with it. Blah, blah, blah. Before giving up personal sins and vices during Lent, the pagans held a wild, anything-goes celebration to make sure that they got in their share of debaucheries and perversities, what the world celebrates as Mardi Gras today. All that to say, Lent is not biblical. Lent was never observed by Jesus or his followers. It was instituted by man. It's a man-made tradition. So any type of man-made tradition, we just need to be careful. All right, let's look at Easter a little bit. Every year at Ostara, another name for the spring equinox, everyone begins chatting about a goddess of spring known as Eostra. According to the stories, she is a goddess associated with flowers and springtime, and her name gives us the word Easter, as well as the name of Ostara itself. And a little bit more about Eostra. Eostra, in antiquity worshipped in a spring festival, also known as Easter, goddess of the spring, protectress of fertility, goddess of rebirth, and friend to all children. To amuse children, Eostra changed her beautiful pet bird into a rabbit. The rabbit brought forth brightly colored eggs, which Eostra gave the children as gifts. Sounds familiar? There's where you get the Easter bunny from. All right, let's move ahead. All right, I know Facebook is not the most scholarly source of information, but this is pretty well written, so I hope it convinces you. The Masonic Founding Fathers of America picked July 4th to celebrate Independence Day, not to be free from royal monarch rule, but as a hidden celebration of sun worship. If America is the end-time nation of Babylon, instead of Elohim's chosen nation, as often deemed by Sunday sun-worshipping churches and pastors in America, then America's roots should offer additional proof of this fact. In virtually all pagan societies, the sun god was worshipped as the time of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. In the old Julian calendar, June 24th was celebrated as the summer solstice, and the counterpart to the December 25th winter solstice. In Babylon, it was Tammuz, and in Greece, it was Adonis, that were resurrected during these midsummer day festivals to rule and reign, a type and shadow of the coming anti-Messiah. The most familiar dates that have been devoted to the satanic celebration of the death and resurrection of the sun god, a pagan Messiah, the Babylonian savior of the world, is the old summer solstice, Midsummer's Eve, June 23rd. The date 1776 can be decoded to reveal the number of the New World Order, 1110, and the number of the beast, 666. Add those two together. The birth of America on July 4th, 1776, the New World was to be the New World Order. An event took place during the reign of Pope Gregory XIII that changed the scope of the Julian calendar. During the 16th century, the calendar was 10 days slow, as the Romans during the reign of Julius Caesar was 10 days behind the sun. Under Pope Gregory's orders, an extremely accurate calendar was constructed and the Julian calendar replaced. 10 days were skipped in October of 1582 to realign the calendar correctly with the sun. Today, virtually the entire world abides by this calendar, called the Gregorian or Western calendar. Many non-Catholic countries did not consent for years, and England did not adopt the modern Gregorian calendar until 1752, 170 years later. With the old Julian calendar 11 days behind the new Gregorian calendar, it was necessary to drop the 11 days. So in England in 1752, September 2nd was followed the next day by September 14th. Many people found it hard to accept that 11 days had just disappeared, so they continued to refer to holidays by the old Julian calendar by the word old before the holiday. The new date of July 4th was actually the old June 23rd. As a result, instead of celebrating Midsummer's Eve on June 23rd, many celebrated Old Midsummer's Eve on July 4th, Satan's special holiday of resurrection and the lighting of fires to the sun god was transferred from the 23rd of June to the 4th of July. The birthday of the U.S., the 4th of July, 1776, is Old Midsummer Eve, the day when the world, since ancient Egypt and Babylon, has given worship to Baal by lighting fires. Research reveals that in addition to bonfires, fireworks also became a new form of celebration in Europe of Old Midsummer's Eve, or July 4th. Mankind continued its celebration of June 24th as Satan's holiday well beyond ancient Babylon. The Celtic Druids, who sacrificed both humans and animals in fires to Bel, lit fires on the 24th of June, Midsummer Day. In the centuries following the Druids, the lighting of huge bonfires and torches on the 23rd of June, Midsummer's Eve, extended all throughout pagan Europe. The Midsummer's Eve bonfires to Bel on June 23rd crossed the ocean and became the 4th of July fireworks celebrations to Bel, the god behind the birth of last-day Babylon, which would usher in a new order of the ages with liberty and justice for all. One of the symbols of the celebration of the 4th of July was the phoenix, the firebird that is sacred to the sun and rises from the ashes. The original Great Seal of the United States depicted a phoenix instead of an eagle, which was emblematic of America being the resurrection of Babylon. The phoenix was later changed to an eagle, the symbol of both Old Babylon and Old Rome. The next time you celebrate the 4th of July by viewing a local or national display of fireworks, think of the roots of the celebration and the real spirit which birthed this day into being. Just like December 25th is not the celebration of the birth of Yeshua Messiah, but instead the celebration of the birth of the sun as it rises its first degree into the sky after its 3-day rest after the winter solstice. Wow. Does that not just blow your mind? Oh my goodness. Woo! Let's move on to Halloween, which has origins in another holiday or festival called Samhain. Samhain is a pagan religious festival originating from an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition. In modern times, Samhain is usually celebrated from October 31st to November 1st to welcome in the harvest and usher in the dark half of the year. Celebrants believe that the barriers between the physical world and the spirit world break down during Samhain, allowing more interaction between humans and denizens of the other world. Now let's look at the origins of some specific Halloween traditions. Trick-or-treating. On All Souls' Day in England, people would give out pastries in exchange for prayers for dead relatives. Masks and costumes. Ancient Celts would wear masks to avoid being recognized by ghosts. And by the way, the etymology of mask is from medieval Latin, and I can't remember the exact Latin word, but the translation of that word is witch. Anyway, moving on. Orange and black. In pagan harvest celebrations, orange symbolizes crops and black represents the death of summer. And jack-o'-lanterns. Scary faces were carved into turnips and potatoes in the Middle Ages to ward off evil spirits. So I don't know how we transitioned into pumpkins, but anyway, that's where it came from. All right, moving right along. Christmas. This is an article that a pastor wrote, and he gives his reasons why he doesn't celebrate Christmas. First, Jesus was not born on December 25th. Second, the roots of Christmas are found in Saturnalia. Pagans in Rome celebrated this week-long period of bedlam and lawlessness between December 17th and 25th. During this period of anarchy, no one could be punished for their vandalism and mayhem. An enemy of the Roman people, was chosen to represent the Lord of Misrule. Each community selected a victim and forced him to gorge himself on food and other indulgences throughout the week. On the last day of the festival, December 25th, they took vengeance against the forces of darkness by brutally murdering this victim. Kellerman writes that besides this human sacrifice, there was widespread drunkenness, public nudity, rape, and other sexual license. After Constantine converted to Catholicism, many pagans followed him once they were allowed to maintain their celebration of Saturnalia. They solved the problem of Saturnalia having nothing to do with Christianity by declaring December 25th to be Jesus' birthday, replacing the celebration of the birth of Sol Invictus, but little changed in practice. Third, many of the trappings of Christmas are directly imported from paganism. For instance, the Catholic Church shamelessly welcomed the pagan tree worshippers into their fellowship. They simply called their trees Christmas trees. Mistletoe is another example of such syncretism. The ancient Druids used its supposed mystical powers to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck. In ancient Norse mythology, mistletoe was used to symbolize love and friendship. The custom of kissing under the mistletoe is a later blending of the sexual license of Saturnalia with Druidic practice. Blah, 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 blah. Fourth, December 25th has traditionally been the day when pagans mark the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. It is a day venerated every year by worshippers of the sun god. Egyptians celebrated Horus's birthday on December 25th. Other cultures also worship their gods on this day: the Mesopotamians, the ancient Greeks, and the Persians. Winter solstice traditions stretch back long before Jesus Christ entered into the world. Fifth, Christmas is all about commercialism. Many people struggle with low wages and debt, yet they spend hundreds of dollars to buy Christmas gifts. The average American family will spend $882 this year on Christmas presents. Blah, blah, blah. Lastly, and in summary, the supposed worship of Jesus Christ is based on falsehoods, from rebranding pagan sun worship as worship of the Son of God to people telling their children that Santa will withhold their presents if they are not good. Everything is a fabrication. Try as they might, people cannot make the unclean clean or the unholy holy. Let's look at a couple other things that are connected to Christmas. Christmas lights. Yule logs in the fireplace, candles in the windows, twinkling lights on the tree and the house, they are everywhere. In the American Book of Days, Jane M. Hatch writes, "An ancient midwinter festival in northern Europe was Yule, which celebrated the rebirth of the sun. During these occasions, the northern tribes would light sacred fires as an act of sympathetic magic to ensure the health and vigor of the newly reborn sun. What it boils down to is that these people were afraid of the dark and the evil spirits they believed inhabited it. Unfortunately, rather than fear these lights, Satan has embraced them as a way to misguide a deceived mankind." Ain't that the truth? And dolls. How many little girls have received baby dolls or Barbies for Christmas? Millions, probably. Even this practice was inspired by heathen custom. The Encyclopedia Britannica, 11th edition, under the article Saturnalia, gives an eye-opening explanation. These dolls were especially given to children, and the makers of them held a regular fair at this time. Varro thought these dolls represented original sacrifices of human beings to the infernal god. The Greeks and Romans gave the names Cronus and Saturn to the cruel Phoenician Baal, to whom they offered human sacrifices. In ancient Carthage, the Phoenicians sacrificed their firstborn children to Baal. Even Israel offered human sacrifices to Molech and Baal in Tophet, later known as the Hinnom Valley or Gehenna. Reindeer. Although reindeer have been extinct in the British Isles since the 12th century, the horn god continued to be commemorated. Ceremonies using the reindeer antlers were often performed at Yuletide during the 12 days of Christmas. Santa's reindeer evolved from the Celtic horned god. 8 reindeer pull Santa's sleigh, representative of the 8 solar sabbats. From their late autumn dramatic Reading displays, stags represented strength, sexuality, and fertility. And here's who the god is that they're talking about. The Celtic god Cernunnos bears the antlers of a deer. Santa Claus, who evokes the memory of the northern gods Odin and Thor, is transported in a sleigh drawn by reindeer. And last but not least, Santa Claus. I'm not going to go through this article all the way, but this author was very creative in pointing out all the similarities that Santa has with Jesus, or has attempted to have. They're both eternal, they both live in the north, per se. They both wear red clothing, white hair, gives gifts. They're coming soon or coming to town. Omniscient, knowing you've been good or bad. Omnipresent, omnipotent, and has spirit helpers. But let's read this part. Sanat Kumara is worshipped by some New Age groups as God. H.P. Blavatsky, the mother of the New Age movement, said on page 350 of her book, The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, the name isn't important, it is the letters. Santa has the same letters as Satan. So you see 3 different spellings there, but I'm convinced that they all point to the same person, Satan himself. Alright, so that does it for holidays and days of the week. Let's end this by talking a little bit about birthdays. Don't get scared. I'm not going to tell you to stop celebrating birthdays. Nothing wrong with celebrating birthdays. Nothing in the Bible that says you shouldn't celebrate a birthday. As a matter of fact, celebrating a birthday is the simplest way of saying, God, thank you for another year of life. But there are 2 things connected with birthdays that I want to warn you guys about. First, birthday candles and birthday wishes. One of the most well-known birthday traditions in American culture is the blowing out of birthday candles to make a wish. Birthday candles have an origin in witchcraft, in a category called candle magic. The following author is a best-selling Wiccan author who has developed her own set of tarot cards and other teachings on shamanistic witchcraft, and she explains that witches have used candle magic over the past few thousand years. In spellcrafting, candles speak a magical language. Their words are the flickering flame, popping wax, and curling smoke. A candle flame touches something deep within your being. It represents the spirit's highest potential, while the smoke carries your wishes, prayers, and desires to the divine. Candle magic can be as simple as dedicating a candle to a god or goddess, or making a dedication by lighting a candle in memory of an ancestor or for a friend who has died. Birthday candles are still used for making magic wishes. Let's look at wishes a little bit. Americans traditionally put candles on a cake, and the person whose birthday is being celebrated is told to make a wish and then blow out the candles. The resulting smoke from the candles is symbolic in witchcraft that the wishes of the person blowing out the fire would be heard by the pagan gods and goddesses. To the devil, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. It only matters whether or not you bring his demonic practices into your home. And witches themselves will tell you that it has nothing to do with your intentions. Anyone who has made a wish before blowing out birthday candles has practiced candle magic. Quick, easy, and effective. This magical art requires no religious doctrine or previous magic experience. So, that's one, birthday wishes. The other, piñatas. Widespread opinion is that the Chinese may have been the first to use something like the piñata as part of their New Year celebration, which also marked the beginning of the spring, blah, 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 blah. It is thought that in the 13th century, Venetian traveler Marco Polo took the piñata back with him from China to Italy. There it acquired its present name from the Italian word piñata, or fragile pot, and came to be filled with trinkets, jewelry, or candy instead of seeds. The tradition then spread to Spain. Breaking the piñata became a custom on the first Sunday of Lent, which we've already learned about. It seems that at the beginning of the 16th century, Spanish missionaries brought the piñata to Mexico. However, the missionaries may have been surprised, as we were, to find that the native people of Mexico already had a similar tradition. The Aztecs celebrated the birthday of, not even going to try to pronounce that, their god of the sun and war by placing a clay pot on a pole in his temple at the end of the year. The pot was adorned with colorful feathers and filled with tiny treasures. It was then broken with a stick, and the treasures that spilled out became an offering to the god's image. The Maya also played a game in which blindfolded participants hit a clay pot suspended by a string. So there you have it. The origins of 2 birthday traditions and a host of holidays have shown us just how pagan our society really is. All of them connected to gods, pagan practices, satanic rituals. So hopefully this information has been helpful. Share it with someone who may benefit from it. And until next time, be vigilant, my friends.